Now we'll actually go through and implement this image upload API. The first thing we need to do is create the task images folder. This is the folder that will contain all of the images that we upload. So what we've got currently is the MAMP folder, htdocs, which is our what's called the web root. That's basically what our web server serves to the public. We then have v1, which is obviously contains our current API stuff in there. We then have the controller and the model. But versus the new folder structure that we're just about to create, you can see here we've actually inserted a task images folder. But you're probably thinking, well, why isn't this folder within the web root or the v1 folder? Well, there's a couple of reasons really. If we put the task images folder within v1, if we then create a version 2 of the API, that means we would have to copy all of the task images to the v2 folder. So that means duplicating images. And then obviously the images themselves would be different based on which version of the API the client's calling. So for consistency reasons, we take this outside of the v1 or the v2 folder. So you're probably still thinking, well, why isn't it just in the htdocs folder? Well, this is the most important bit, to be honest. What we've actually done here is put it outside of the web root. So the web root is the folder that the web server serves to the public. So all of the files within here are accessible via a web address. So in our case, it's localhost port 8888 / and then anything after that / is within this htdocs folder. Now, because we're actually storing physical files for obviously client uploads, then we don't want these physical files actually being publicly available to anyone that can just, give a URL direct into the task images folder. Now, you could mess around with folder security and things like that, but actually best practice is to move any image uploads or even file upload folders outside of the web root. This means that no matter what the client tries to type in their web browser, they cannot get physical access to these task images or this folder outside of the web root. People try and upload executable files and all sorts of things, trying to sort of take your site down or create a malicious sort of environment for your users. Obviously, moving this outside of this allows anything or any web address that you type in to not be able to execute any file within that folder. So basically, it's belt and braces. It's good security practice to do that. It's industry standard. There's different ways of hosting files. You can use Amazon's S3, obviously Azure as well. That's kind of out of the scope of this course, but the same will obviously be relevant for that. The image file location that you call within the code, which we'll go through later, will obviously call these physical files from this other folder structure that's not publicly accessible to your normal users. As an example of a potential security issue, imagine if a user tried to upload a PHP file, for example. Well, that PHP file could be malicious. It could, try and delete every file on your file system. It could try and send client access tokens to, some hacker or something like that. Like I say, what you do is store it outside of the public root. And then obviously the user if they do upload something, they can't directly access that file. We use a script, and we'll go through that later. We use a script to actually pull that content and send it back to the user. So you're not actually executing any file or anything like that on the server itself. Obviously I'm using MAMP here, but this same concept is relevant for all other web servers such as IIS, obviously Apache because that's what we're using here, but even Nginx. Basically, you store any file upload outside of the web root folder. So what we'll do now is actually create this folder. So from your desktop, I'm just going to go to Finder, Applications, and obviously I'm using MAMP. And obviously this is the contents of the MAMP folder here. So from within here, you can see our htdocs folder. And if we expand that, you'll be able to see our v1 and obviously our controller files and things like that. So what we want to do here is create a new folder called task images. Now you can secure this folder down. It's out of the scope of this course, but technically what you would do is you would allow administrators access for administrative purposes of the server, and then obviously whatever user the web server is running as, they would need obviously kind of modify access to read and write files to this folder. so you can actually secure it down to just them two sort of users. But like I say, it's out of the scope of this course, but I thought I'll just point you in the right direction if you do implement this. So now that the folder's created, we can actually get on to changing the database to obviously implement our TBL images table.